Welcome to the Transforming Trauma podcast. Transforming Trauma is presented by the Complex Trauma Training Center. I'm your host, Emily Ruth, and I'm so glad you've joined us today. Licensed mental health professionals, we warmly invite you to join our Spring 2026 NARM Therapist Training, a live online immersion into the transformative power of the NeuroAffective Relational Model. This advanced clinical training is designed specifically for those seeking to deepen their expertise in healing complex trauma while offering the accessibility of an online format. From January to August 2026, you'll be part of a supportive virtual community of learners integrating mindfulness and clinical expertise. Through 4 comprehensive modules, you'll gain specialized trauma-informed knowledge and skills to confidently and compassionately address the impacts of adverse childhood experiences and complex trauma. Together, we'll explore how to support the resolution of attachment, developmental, relational, cultural, and intergenerational trauma using a neurobiologically informed approach that promotes post-traumatic growth. Embodying professional and personal growth, you'll become a catalyst for transformation in your practice and community. Enrollment is now open for licensed psychotherapists, counselors, social workers, psychologists, and other mental health professionals, as well as graduate trainees and interns working toward licensure. Visit complextraumatrainingcenter.com to learn more and secure your spot in this online training opportunity. And now for our interview. In this special episode, CTTC faculty Stephanie Klein sits down with Brad Kammer, co-author of the new book, The Workbook for Healing Developmental Trauma, Tools and Techniques from the NeuroAffective Relational Model, coming out November 4th, 2025. Brad is the training director of the Complex Trauma Training Center and created the Space Inner Development Program for therapists. He is a licensed psychotherapist, educator, consultant, and executive producer of this podcast. Brad is also a senior NARM trainer and co-author of the Practical Guide for Healing Developmental Trauma. In their conversation, Brad shares his intentions for the new workbook, how it supports both therapists and clients in addressing developmental trauma, and practical ways readers can use the material for their own personal healing and growth. We are excited to share this meaningful conversation with you. Please enjoy.
Hey, Brad.
Hi there.
It's good to be with you today to talk about this exciting new workbook, the Workbook for Healing Developmental Trauma. And I wanted to wish you congratulations on this second book that you've written about NARM and the third book in the NARM canon. It's super exciting and looking forward to having a discussion with you about it, learning more.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's this one was easier than the first one that I was participating in, but I think going to be super useful for folks. So I'm happy to share a little bit about our intention and how we hope to see folks using it.
Excellent. Well, I got a little sneak peek, which was exciting, and you were talking in the intro a little bit about your people actually requesting some kind of a desktop, simpler, like kind of boiled down resource for being able to keep integrating NARM or understand NARM or use NARM. And was that the primary intention or inspiration for adding this book after the practical guide?
Yeah, well, the origin goes back to 2012 when Larry and Aline first put out Healing Developmental Trauma, which was the first book to introduce the NeuroAffective Relational Model, NARM. And it's such a great book. It was so well received, and it goes really deep into the theory, particularly about the adaptive survival styles, which is so much of the foundation of understanding how we understand and work with developmental trauma, working with complex PTSD, the ACEs, understanding. But there was people that were saying there's not much clinical in here. They wanted to see a lot more clinical, and so that's when Larry and I started talking about a follow-up to that book, which the publishers were really excited about because Larry and Aline's first book did really, really well. And so we started working on what we thought was going to be a workbook for the follow-up to the Healing Developmental Trauma. It turned out to be, well, originally it was well over 400 pages. We got it down to about
Oh,
400 pages. And all of a sudden we realized it really wasn't a workbook at all. It wasn't something desk friendly that people could just flip through. It was actually a whole other text that went deep into the clinical. So the first book was much more theoretical. This book was much more clinical. And then that's where people were like, okay, this is great, but we still need something easier to access because you really got to read through most of the chapters to really get the essence of the skills. So can we find a way like we do in some of our Intro to NARM workshops or some of our online videos that we make, can we make it simpler for people to access just the basic principles and skills of NARM? And so then that's what we set out to do for the practical, for the workbook. That's a follow-up to the practical guide.
yeah. And I feel like you really did an excellent job at that. Like I often reference the practical guide. I mean, first of all, I'll go all the way back for me. Like I loved healing developmental trauma. It like opened up worlds for me. You and I sat together in early NARM trainings, learning from Dr. Heller about the model, but the clinical framework hadn't even really been figured, completely articulated yet. And I know you were a big part of helping Dr. Heller articulate the clinical frame, which then we started to teach, and the practical guide does such a great job of capturing all of that. And I reference it a lot, but yeah, it's still a lot of information. It's still pretty technical. So it's really exciting to think about like the accessibility of a book like this. If you don't know anything about NARM, being able as a therapist to use this as a resource. So that sort of got me wondering, like, who is it for? Like, I can definitely see that it's for therapists who want to build their skills, like for working with healing developmental trauma, working with their clients and complex trauma. But it feels like it might go beyond that. Like, it feels like there might be a broader audience, even people that maybe want to heal their own trauma.
Yeah, I think all three of the NARM books have done a pretty good job of making this balance where they're really written for professionals, for helping professionals, particularly for therapists, psychologists, social workers, people that work clinically with developmental and complex trauma. But so many people who are just humans that deal with these patterns and these symptoms and these issues really have resonated with the first two books. Very much. And Larry talked a lot about how in the first book, he got more emails from non-clinicians, just saying, hey, I can really resonate with this adaptive survival style, or the way that you're describing this really kind of speaks to my experience. And so we really decided to do the same thing for the follow-up two books. So the practical guidebook and now the workbook. They're written with clinicians in mind. That's really the target audience, but we wrote it in ways that people who are just everyday people interested in self-healing and personal growth can learn about. And we have exercises. In this particular workbook, we have two sets of exercises in each section. So we have the professional clinical exercises that people can either reflect on how they'd bring it to their clients, or literally take what we've written and bring it into their clients. And then there's a section on personal, which is really more for the therapist or whoever it is that's reading it to kind of use it for their own reflection about their own experience. Some of those will be very relevant. Some of them might not be so relevant. It just depends. Everyone's so different. But again, the idea is to really give a resource that can be used both for clinicians and also people that are just interested in learning more and growing more around this work of developmental and complex trauma.
That's great. I loved the two sides of the exercises. That was different to see. And I also thought about it, even for clinicians, the personal exercises help them have a personal relationship to the material, which can also help us be more effective therapeutically. So I feel like it was kind of threefold, even the way that you design the exercises. Really loved that.
Yeah. Yeah, which is, that's really my passion. And that's where some of the programs that you and I have been working on are really more focusing on kind of the inside out development for therapists. There's so many different clinical models out there. And, NARM is our favorite and the one that we really use primarily in our practice. And there's a human that is in the role of a therapist, and we're not robots just, doing protocols with people. We are working in this very kind of fluid, dynamic process, human to human. And one of the great things, but also one of the risks of being a therapist or any kind of clinician, is that it pulls from our own experience. And so the good part of that is we can use our experiences to really inform us how to, help our clients. And kind of the bad side of it is that if we're not looking at that, if we're not addressing what's coming up for us, then it very easily leans into things like compassion fatigue, burnout, and a very high percentage of clinicians change professions if they're not addressing what's coming up for them. I mean, if you think about seeing 5, 6, 7, 8 clients a day, 4 or 5 days a week, that's a lot of emotional material that you're processing. And if you don't have a place to kind of access that and get support around that, that does have consequences. And so again, this is a book that hopefully can help people. It is designed to be a desktop reference, even though it's still over 100 pages. But the idea is that they can kind of flip into a section, let's say on agency, which is the third pillar, and they can, in between clients, they can do a few of those exercises for themselves if that feels like that would be supportive moving into their next client.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were talking about the human who's practicing the skills, who's doing the model, about like sort of the balance between structure and the framework and feeling grounded in it and feeling supported in the framework, as well as the other side, which is being in touch with what's going on inside of us as the human being who's the therapist. And I feel like these last 2 books can, really support both, because they're providing more structure, more of that framework. But from a perspective that we're still in self-inquiry, we're still really exploring through these exercises how all of these themes live within us.
And I think people are really seeking that in our day and age. And even though social media and YouTube and podcasts are great, there's something to be said about a space where we can really take time for self-reflection. And so again, that's the idea, is like kind of supporting both self-reflection, but also clinical support. Because, we're working with clients that are very complex and often quite challenging for us as therapists. Yeah. And, not everyone is getting regular supervision or getting regular consultation or has the time or money to go to these 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 year trainings. And so we're trying to make this as accessible as possible in a way that, it's tricky with a depth-oriented model like NARM. How do you write that in 100 pages? How do you make a desktop reference of it? Yeah. And the truth is you can't learn a model like this from a book, but there are tips and tools that hopefully we can give to folks that can support them.
Yeah, it's been interesting in our trainings to see how we're using the practical guide, along with the learning and all the experiential opportunities and all of the practice opportunities. They were also using that as sort of the practical guide as sort of a backup to support and help them integrate the learning. So this seems like an extension of that.
Oh, I love that. I love when I'm teaching and I see someone like flipping through the book. I mean, someone challenged me. It was so funny. Someone challenged me about something that was written in the book, which was, Larry and I wrote the book and didn't have much editing at all in terms of what we created. And it was funny. The person was kind of challenging. It was almost like they were kind of using the author's words against me. And I was like, well, I am the author.
But it says right here.
It says right here. Yeah. So that's just fun. It's been really fun. And, it was a huge, as it was like a huge undertaking for me because it goes back to the question you were asking before. It's like, when Larry and Aline put together the first book, Healing Developmental Trauma, there wasn't kind of a standalone clinical model yet in NARM, and you and I were part of that first training. And Larry was, working it out as he was teaching. And one of the things that was really lovely about that experience is Larry really invited us in to kind of help him shape that. So, you and me and Marcia talked on our origin stories on the podcast a few months back about, how we started to kind of participate in the development of those early days of NARM. And so, that's where the practical guide came from. That's where the manuals that we use in the training, that's where the clinical trainings that we do through CTTC were all developed from. And then this is where the workbook also developed from. And it's been really fun to kind of be part of the evolution of NARM. I think we've really developed a really powerful, transformative model. And I hope that there's room for it to continue to evolve moving into the future as well.
Yeah, me too. But like the canon is growing. There's now 3 books out there. I even just like this is a little preview of coming attractions for people who haven't seen the book yet, but just the incorporation of some of the images that that you included in the book were really, really great resources or support. They were like, I don't know how to describe them, the graphics, illustrations, but they would take a concept and make it visual.
Yes.
And that felt like such a nice new addition to bring into something like a desktop guide.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that.
Well, shout out to Amanda Loesch. She was the person that I was working closely with. And as you know, I am very artistically, ignorant. And
Same.
I can't do anything. Although I can have a sense of something. And so I needed a partner to be like, okay, here's the sense. And then she was fantastic. She would give me different versions. And she's a really beautiful graphic artist. And we had a good time doing it and really appreciate her. And I think you're right. I think it adds an element that I think it also kind of helps soften some of the academic nature
Yeah.
of some of these clinical books. I mean, in my early days, I really wanted to understand psychoanalysis so bad, and I could not. I'm a pretty smart person. I think I could not get through these books. They were so dry, so academic. That was, before we had Google and ChatGPT, and I would be sitting there looking up all these words, and it was hard for me to grasp it. And so I've always valued when people don't dumb it down, but they do make it more accessible. And I think particularly in the modern era we live in, our attention span is very short. And so the way we tried to kind of create these chapters, they're just a couple pages. I was listening to the audiobook last night, and it's like they're really short. I mean, a couple of those chapters are just 3 or 4 minutes in audiobook form. And a minute or two of those are the exercise. And so they're really we tried to be really concise with how we were presenting it. So again, people could easily access it. And I think the images helped too. It's another way of communicating some of what we're trying to share with people.
Yeah, and also like speaking to different styles of learning. Like some people are more visual or can take something in more from a graphic. Like I struggle with reading dense text. And so for me, like the fact that you've made audiobooks of all of these is really, really helpful because I can take in more when I'm listening. So yeah, I appreciate that it's accessible on many levels. Was there anything challenging for you about boiling it down or making it more succinct or desktop-y?
That's a good question. I mean, the first book, the practical guidebook, was very challenging. Very, very challenging. I mean, I've told this story before, but just like chapter 5 on agency, which is pillar 3, reinforcing agency, I sat at that blank screen on my computer for days. And then finally, I just reached out to the community through our private Facebook group that we have, people that have gone through our trainings who are NARM therapists and our master therapists. And I said, people, give me your sense of what agency is, like from the inside out. Like what's your experience of it, or what are you noticing with your clients? And I got so many responses, and that really actually helped me big time. I started to put the responses together, and it started to kind of get me into the feeling of it. And then I was able to kind of shift out of trying to capture it academically more into the to the lived experience of it. And then from there, I was able to kind of reverse engineer and kind of bring in some of the academic theoretical part of it. But yeah, it was a challenging book because I felt a lot of pressure. I put a lot of pressure on myself. The first book on the clinical model, and I just so feel like this model is so precious and so important, and I wanted to do a good job with it. And so that one was a huge challenge. We started and stopped several times. I didn't think we were ever going to finish it. And this one was much easier. It was like I kind of, you're part of the faculty here with us, and so you know that the curriculum has been set for 7-8 years now, and we have evolved it over the years, but it's a pretty solid curriculum, and it's pretty simplistic in terms of what it could be. I think we've done a great job I always joke in the trainings, it should be a 6-year training. And we've put it down to 1 year. We've made it into a 1-year training, basically, 2 years if you take the master's training. So I think, we had a really solid curriculum that I was able to pull from, and give me kind of a template for how to keep it simple and not get too far. So I think we did a good job with it this time. And yeah, nothing's really standing out that was difficult. Finding the balance between clinical and personal is always a little bit challenging because it's very easy to veer too far on one side. So, that was something we were just kind of tracking. But otherwise, it was a much more simple and much more enjoyable process, I would say, than the last one. Although, the practical guidebook I'm super proud of because I just think it really captures so much of where NARM is at now and can be a really valuable resource for people that can't access the trainings or just want to go deeper.
Yeah. Well, just logistically, when can people get the workbook? When is it?
Today, I know we're recording this earlier, but this will be coming out on November 4th, and this evening we'll be doing a book launch party that you'll be supporting me with online and in person for folks that will be coming in person. So you're welcome to join us online if you're listening to this. And the audiobook comes out today too, so both come out. Last time we had to wait a few months on the audiobook. This time they're going to release the audiobook on the same day. So today you can either access the hard copy and or the audiobook.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want people to know about this book or about NARM in general?
No, I mean, I think a lot about like when I have gotten interested in, which I'm always getting interested in different clinical approaches, and I'll ask around, I'll say, hey, what's a good first book for this model? And I think I was thinking a lot about that. Like, I think the Practical Guide is a great first book, but it's big and it's a commitment. And so I was like, okay, that's a great first book, but in the day and age that we live in, are people really gonna read that and commit to that? And so then I was like, well, let's find something that's simpler that they actually could get through. People can easily get through this in a day. I mean, probably in a couple hours, if not shorter. It's really designed to kind of go through pretty quickly. You don't have to navigate a lot of theory. For example, like with the 4 pillars, we just have maybe, 4 or 5 paragraphs just setting up the context for them, and then we give an example, and then we kind of do the exercises. So we're really keeping it pretty tight in that way. So I just really want it to be a place where if this is the first place people meet NARM, they get a sense of it, they get a flavor of it, and then in the end we have a resource section where they can either go to the NARM Training Institute or Complex Trauma Training Center. These are 2 places, 2 organizations that host different NARM events and trainings. And so for people that that aren't licensed therapists or studying to be licensed therapists, they can go to what we used to call the level 1. Now they call it the NARM Basics Training. That's run through the NARM Training Institute, and that's an online program for folks, giving them the basic theory of the NeuroAffective Relational Model. And for clinicians and people that are studying to be clinicians, they can go do the clinical model through Complex Trauma Training Center, which you and I are faculty of. and we teach the NARM therapist training, which is a 1 year either online or in person program. And then for people that want to do another deeper dive into NARM, we have the NARM Master's Therapist training, which is also a year-long program, either online or in person. And so it could be this beginning of a journey for people to learn NARM, to bring to their clients, but also to bring into their own life and hopefully their own healing process.
Yeah, that's exciting. Like a step one. I think about, how pervasive developmental and complex trauma is, and how people are working with it all the time, whether they know they're working with it or not. And, whether you're a therapist or a coach or an educator or a medical practitioner or whatever, we're always confronting the effects of developmental and complex trauma on a daily basis. So it's just exciting to think about the ripple effect for people who, like you said, aren't gonna maybe ever access a training, like what this could mean in different professional settings for people, just bringing some more knowledge into whatever they do about how to show up with people in a way that is going to better support healing and effectiveness in whatever area.
Yeah, I mean, my firm belief that at the basis of so much of our civilizational challenges is unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
I wrote my thesis on that 20 plus years ago. And it's something that I might create into a book again at some point, just because there's such a need for understanding. We're trying all these different directions to kind of, political, social, environmental. There's all these different directions that we're going in to try to kind of combat some of the challenges in our world. And I really believe that until we work with the human that are part of all these different systems, you can't change systems until people change. And so that's really drives my passion. It drives, why I want to get this work out there, not just for individual healing and health, but also for collective, because there's a ripple effect. People go back to their families, they go back to their jobs, they go back to their communities. And when they change, those relationships change, and we need change in a more connected direction. So so again, I know this is a very small little pebble in the large ocean of the universe here, but it just feels good to be contributing something that might help some folks along the way.
Yeah. I mean, pebbles make a pebble can make a lot of difference. Pebbles are important. I was just thinking about the fact that a lot of the feedback we get when we're teaching the NARM training, the NARM therapist training, and the master's training is how learning the model creates so much shift and change for people on a personal level. It's like the kind of model that you can't really learn without growing and healing along the way. It's just a byproduct. So it's exciting to think about that, starting with the human first, including the human who is practicing the model, the human who is supporting other people to heal. I had one last question for you. You good for one more?
Great. Yeah.
You kind of alluded to it already, which is, do you think about other books? Are there other books in you that you think about writing someday?
I think you know me well enough to know the answer for
There
that.
probably are. Yeah, you kind of said it. I was like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, there are. I take notes on my phone or on my computer. I probably have like notes for 15 or 20 different books, but I have a next kind of book. It's not going to be a specific NARM book, but it is going to be going deeper into this kind of human aspect of being a therapist. And I'm really excited to kind of start to shape it a little bit more, hopefully next year when I have a little bit more time. But yeah, really, I think so many of us as therapists are drawn to this profession, whether we're conscious of it or not, because we really want to heal ourselves. We want to learn about the patterns or the things that were harming us growing up and how we adapted to them and how we brought them into our adulthood. It's not always that conscious for people, but sometimes it is. And then, this is a great profession because not only do we get to help other people, but we get to learn about human nature, which then we can apply to ourselves. But I think that the way that the profession has kind of gone, and it makes sense in some ways to keep it very professional, and to keep it from people acting out on each other. There's been a way that that people kind of come into the field and they don't actually get what they were originally looking for. And so it leaves them kind of unfulfilled. They feel like they're kind of an object, just every day doing this for other people. They feel pulled along with their clients a lot. And like I said earlier, I think they start to kind of have compassion fatigue and burn out and act in and act out in different ways. And I think I love psychotherapy. I just think it's so important for humans and for our world. It's an incredible craft. It takes years and years and years. I mean, you're never finished learning and developing. And there's always novelty. There's always complexity to navigate. There's always the unknown. And I just love being part of the learning and the growth. And I think a big aspect of that is, how do we not leave ourselves out of that process? How do we bring ourselves more fully in so that we get to know more about what's happening in us that can help us not only feel healthier, but more fulfilled, and then, of course, more effective in our clinical work. And so, that's kind of where my mind is kind of heading. And we'll see what happens with that, but that would be kind of my intention for 2026.
I'm excited for that book whenever it comes out. Very excited. One of the things that I love the most and admire the most about you is that just constant fountain of creativity that is coming out of you. It's like a never-ending flow of things that you want to learn more about and share and write about. And I have just tremendous admiration about. You're very prolific. So looking forward to much more.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for, always being such a support and being an early reader of these books, and more than an early reader, an early supporter and believer in me. It's been such a pleasure to be on this NARM journey. I mean, folks don't know, me and Stephanie met on day one of NARM, for both of us, really. I mean, we had both been introduced to NARM well before that, but the first official kind of NARM training you and I were connected at, and you were handing me the microphone, and I was sometimes handing it back, and
sometimes not.
Sometimes not. Marcia would grab it. And so we've had a great journey and lots of challenges and growth opportunities along the way. And, I think we both love this model and are so happy to share it with the people we get to share it with. And if people can't come and learn from us directly, then I hope that they can learn from Larry and I in either audio form or the book.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having this conversation with me about it. And congratulations again about the book coming out.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode. To find more information about our guest, check the show notes or visit us at complextraumatrainingcenter.com/transforming trauma. You can also connect with us in other ways. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. As a mental health professional, your commitment to healing and growth inspires us. We at the Complex Trauma Training Center are committed to supporting you in your well-being and success. That's why we are honored to invite you to our Space Program 2026, an interdevelopment program of support and self-discovery for therapists on the personal, interpersonal, and transpersonal levels. Running over 6 online sessions in 2026, this interactive experiential learning program is designed to support self-care and self-discovery for therapists exploring internally, relationally, and transpersonally. CTTC faculty will welcome you into a professional community of therapists that are seeking to create greater effectiveness and resilience in our professional lives. As CTTC faculty Brad Kammer says, the intent is that this program will help us not only become more effective therapists, but also love our work more. please visit complextraumatrainingcenter.com and secure your spot in the 2026 SPACE program. Thanks to Rig for producing and editing, to Tori Essex for our album art, and to Brad Kammer for the creation of this podcast. We look forward to building community and connection with you and changing the world by transforming trauma.